look back at their lives, at their testimonies.
Amen.
You know, when God touched them. There was a time and there was a place and there was a second where God spoke to your heart and you made a decision to follow Him. And really, that's what this is all about, you know, in our lives.
Amen.
Is just sharing that, be ready to share that good news.
Yes, yes,
Amen.
yes, yes.
As I'm sharing this, I'm going to, I don't know how brief I'm going to be, but everything that you're going to hear today, some of it may shock you. Some of it you may say, you mean you did that? Or, man, God saved you from that? Yeah, He did. Yeah, He did. And as I'm sharing it, I want you to think back. Before you were saved, where now you look back and you see God saved you.
Amen.
He was there.
Yes.
He was on time, wasn't he?
Yes, it was.
Amen.
You know, when you sung that song today, I thought about it. I said, man, yeah, right on time.
Yes.
Many times He's been right on time.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
By the way, I enjoyed that singing.
Thank you,
Hallelujah.
Jesus.
Hallelujah.
Thank you.
Bless
Thank
it.
you, Jesus.
Bless it. Thank you, Jesus.
You know, as I share this, you know, I also want it to be a something that where you all participate too.
Amen.
And that's why I said that when you think back, remember to the times that He was there. And He was there right on time.
Yes.
You know, and don't be afraid to say that.
Yes.
He was there.
Yes.
You know? My name is Robert Dale Morrell. Some people call me Robbie Dale. Some people call me Robert Dale. Some people call me Bob. I've even been called inmate number, and I don't remember what number that was, but I've been called a lot of things. And I want to give you guys hope. I believe that most of the people out here may be saved, that you've all heard the gospel, but I know
Yes, yes, yes. Bless you.
from being around y'all a short amount of time that you have loved ones that aren't.
Amen.
Or maybe they are, but maybe they're just not giving it all. Maybe they're not following the Lord 100%.
Amen.
So this is for them too.
Yes.
And this is to give you encouragement to know that your prayers are being heard and that God's working
Yeah.
right on time.
Yes.
I mean, that song couldn't have been more appropriate, you know.
Thank you, Father.
And
Thank you, Father.
And I do want to share something that just so you know, everything I'm sharing here that I did or have done was by my own choice.
Yes.
It wasn't because somebody else may have influenced me. If they did, I had to follow that influence. I had to make a decision on whether I wanted to follow what they said or not. You know, as a young kid, I was very rebellious. I started running away from home when I was 13, 14, 15. We didn't have much of God in the house, but there was a little bit, and that little bit always made me think. We would say a prayer. It was pretty much by rote. As I'd go to bed at night, it was, "Now I lay me down to sleep. I pray the Lord my soul to keep." And then I had a whole list of family, friends, and neighbors and relatives that I would pray for. You know, God bless Mom, Dad, Julie, Jeff, Brenda, Stacy. You know, I would go right down the list. You know, but I started running away from home early. And in my runaway time, you know, living on the streets, you know, where do you think I got my food? I resorted to stuff that's not legal. I traveled around the country. I hitchhiked at 14 or 15 years old in junior high school. I hitchhiked all the way up to Connecticut, New London, Connecticut. Left here with short sleeve shirt on, not knowing what it was going to be like. It was winter up there. So next thing you know, the guy I'm with, he decides to leave. Jumps in a car with his friends that he knew were up there and left me. So I'm out in the middle of nowhere. And I get on the road and I start hitchhiking. And I get picked up. And I told the guy, he goes, "Where are you going?" I go, "I'm going to Florida." He goes, "Well, you're going the wrong way." He goes, "You're hitchhiking north." I said, "Oh, okay." And I told him my predicament. And he goes, "Well, I think I got somebody who can help you." But you know what that means? It means that he was there, right on time.
Amen.
He sent somebody to pick me up in that car, to get me out of that cold weather. I was shivering in a short sleeve shirt with snow and icicles hanging from the overpass. People die from thermia all the, hypothermia all the time. But God was there.
Amen.
So he took me, at that time in my life, I had real long hair. I was kind of a hippie. He took me to a Catholic church. First it was like a drug rehab he took me to. And then from there they took me to a Catholic church. And they knew my predicament. He told them my predicament. And I was cold, I was hungry. They fed me. I slept that night. I woke up in the morning. It was a Sunday. And they had collected money from the Sunday service to buy me a bus ticket home. Now, that was amazing, but I had to promise that I'd go home.
Yeah.
Now, at that time in my life, my promises didn't mean much. I could promise all day long, anything you wanted to hear. Well, I promised them, okay, I'll go home. I'll go straight, I'll get off that bus, I'll go straight home. When I got down to Florida and that bus stopped at the Hollywood bus station, I didn't go home. It was the rebellion in me. I thought I knew it all.
Amen.
After I, and so, therefore, by the way, I didn't get much of an education because I was running away all the time and getting in trouble. And that trouble led to detention centers and, listen, I had to make a decision today whether I wanted to share some of the bad stuff, but I can't get away without doing it because I want you to see the contrast
Yeah.
from what it was to what it is now.
Amen.
And it's not, sometimes it's a real broad contrast, where you look at things and you say, oh my gosh, man, wow, and you're shocked. And then other times where it's a real gradual contrast. And you're going to see both here in this little time I'm going to spend with you here. So I didn't get much of an education in schools. I kept running away. I was rebellious. I was living on the streets. I was stealing for a living. I'd go out to the newspaper box, put a quarter in, take all the newspapers out, and go out on Hollywood Beach and sell those individual newspapers. So I would eat, so I could eat. Now, and again, I want to tell you that this is all of my own decision making as a young person, wanting to be. There was some adventurism in there, I'm sure, but to what you see what it led to. Well, as I got older, or I should say, as I went into upper levels of junior high school, that's what they called it back then. I think it was I think it's called middle school now. I went to an elite school that most people don't get to go to. It was very special, and only a few people ended up in this elite school. It was called Okeechobee State Reform School. Anybody ever hear of that? Well, it was supposed to be a 3-month period in there in that reform school, and I ended up being in there for 8 months because I was so rebellious. I escaped from the place 3 times. 3 times. I had to run through swamps, woods, people chasing me. The reason I was able to do that, because I knew that the dog that they usually use to track people, they got hit by a car and died, because I was called out there to scrape him up off the road and bury him. So I said, well, shoot, they ain't got nobody to chase me with. I can get out of here. It was cold, I remember. I remember one of the things that night is seeing a car coming down the road and jumping over a fence and laying down in the grass in the cow pasture. And I was already cold, but guess what I jumped over the fence and laid down in the cow pasture. Guess what it was? Yep. It was a pile of wet cow poop. So now I'm also dirty. So I just had to get rid of the little jacket I had on. So it took me, 8 months in that state reform school, and I still really didn't learn nothing. Having escaped, I came down with pneumonia. They put me in what they call the adjustment unit from escaping while I had pneumonia. And just the name adjustment unit might tell you what they did there. The idea was to adjust you. By the way, Okeechobee State School was the sister school to Marianna State School over in Marianna, Florida. And they're still digging up the bodies out there and trying to identify them. And some of the same people that worked at Marianna worked at Okeechobee. So it wasn't an easy school. I almost died in that adjustment unit because I had pneumonia. They came in, they finally brought me to the doctor, gave me penicillin. I didn't know I was allergic to it. Brought me back and I had an allergic reaction, almost died in there from that. But he was there.
Amen.
Now, I didn't know, I didn't recognize it as that. I didn't recognize that time when I was hitchhiking across the nation, and people were picking me up, that one of them could have been a murderer,
Yeah.
or I didn't realize at state reform school when I was in the adjustment unit, that it was him that was there, that got that guard to come by casually and check in there and say, hey, what's wrong? And I'm over there shaking and hives broken out all over the place. I didn't recognize it as he was there. I didn't know,
Amen.
but he was there.
Amen.
Now, during all this juvenile time, and I'm going to get up to the adult time real soon here because I don't want to take all day, I probably could fill out 10 of these notebooks and share stories with you that you just shake your head. But during that time there, like I said, I always knew, I had a feeling there was a God. Like I know that Oregon State is there. I see it on TV, I see maps of it, but I've never been to Oregon. So I really don't know what Oregon's like, do I?
No.
Well, I kind of knew God was there, but I really don't know what God's like. I didn't really know what God was like. I didn't really understand it. I just had this sense that, oh, there's a God, you know? But it didn't affect my life in any way as far as my judgment. You know, making good decisions. Listening to what he had to say, because I didn't go to church. We would go like maybe on an Easter or on a Christmas or something, but other than that, we really didn't go.
I know about that.
Now, I had an Aunt Betty and Uncle Pete that did go, and that was always in the back of mine. And that'll come into play a little bit later, because their kids and them had a different life than all my other aunts and uncles. There was something different about them. You know what it was? It was that they were Christians.
Amen.
And I recognized that even at a young age. Man, what they got over there, you know? It's not quite like my house, you know, but I guess I should have put on my glasses. Well, being raised down there in South Florida, you know, I ask the Lord's protection over anybody that's raised in South Florida. Because, you know, back in that day, it was the hippie day for me. Drugs, you know, many arrests, you know, juvenile detention centers, a lot of fighting going on, and the Lord protect me through all of it. You know, being as stubborn as I was, you know, and I didn't deserve it. And I look at it and I say, you know, the Lord allowed me to go right to the brink, but he chose to come in and save my life, that, you know, protect me from death that day. Maybe just so I could share something today. Because, you know,
Yeah.
maybe it was just so I could share with something here with somebody today, so they can share with a friend or a family member.
Yeah.
But he did it many times. I had the police shoot at me one day, running out the back door of a house I shouldn't have been in. He said, stop or I'll shoot. I looked back real briefly, kept going, and then a shot fired, and it didn't hit me. They end up catching me, you know, in the water, under a dock, freezing like this, hoping that they weren't going to look under the dock for me. But he was there. He was there. It could have ended that day. It could have ended that day, be on that sweet seawall, glancing back with it, and then taking off running, and then dying. That was the Hollywood Police Department. It could have ended that day. That means none of my kids would be here. I wouldn't be married to Nancy.
Amen.
I wouldn't know y'all. It could have ended that day. I could have been along a cemetery
Yeah.
with many of my friends. Eugene Cannon, Steve, Kenny DeMont. There's a bunch of them buried out there in the Hollywood Cemetery that were good friends of mine that I knew. And one of them, Eugene, got saved. And I remember him coming over to my house right after I got saved and talking to me and saying how he continued to struggle with his life. But anyway, I'll get back to that in a second. It's easy for me to get distracted. And listen, when I say I was doing drugs, and I do claim that the Lord can restore what 1,000 locusts have eaten away. I do. I claim that all the time. Lord, you know, restore this mind.
Amen.
And I was going to bring in a bunch of props today. And I said, you know what, I'll bring in a coffee can. Well, what's that coffee can going to represent? Well, it's going to represent me in Pompano Detention Center painting a room. And I'm in that room and I'm painting, and they got a coffee can to clean the brushes with. Well, guess what I was doing with the coffee can? There was gas in it. I went down and laid over it and started breathing that gas to get hot. And I fell asleep on the can. Now, I could have very well died.
Yes.
Somebody came and got me. But guess what? There he was.
Amen.
There he was, right on time.
Yes.
And again, I didn't know. I did not know. He was right on time.
Amen.
You know, and the other props there, I could have brought in syringes and tell you a story about a time when I said, no more of this, I'm done. I'm on the second floor apartment. I said, I've had it. I felt my heart feeling weird. I said, I'm quitting. I'm not going to do this anymore. I opened that window, took out the screen and bent the needle and threw it out that window. And about an hour or two later, I was out there with a flashlight. Now think about that. That's pretty doggone gross.
Amen.
I'm out there with a flashlight looking for a bent needle so I can get high again. That was my own stupidity again. It was me not knowing what I was doing. It was, you know, Satan never tells you when you take that first drink that one day you may be laying down in the gutter vomiting on yourself.
Amen.
He doesn't tell that young girl or young man, you know, that first time they go out and they sell themselves, that one day they may come down with AIDS and die.
Amen.
Satan don't tell them the end story.
Uh-uh.
He didn't tell me the end story. He didn't tell me that, hey, listen, man, you're going to have a party in time. You're going to enjoy yourself. You're going to meet folks. You're going to, oh man, you're going to have all the freedom and liberty you want until you get caught and get locked up. But I ain't going to tell you that part. You know, I ain't going to tell you that part. I didn't want to leave some of that gross stuff out because I want you to see the contrast. I want you to see the difference. I tell people the story that have known me for a while, a couple of years, and they go, no way, you didn't do all that. No way, no way, no way, no way. And I could have been sent away for a lot longer periods of time. Eventually I was busted for, in Coral Springs, Florida, the newspaper, it was a small town then, put it down as one of the biggest busts ever conducted in the city of Coral Springs. I was selling marijuana, PCP, I had other drugs. And you know what, the interesting thing? When I had when I was shooting stuff up, when I got caught, that was the one thing I didn't want nobody to find. And it was because I was ashamed. If my dad and my parents knew that, you know, and family members knew that I was going that far and putting a needle in my arm, I was ashamed. So a shame comes in, but it wasn't enough to keep me from doing it. I wanted to conceal it, just like Satan does. He wants to conceal what he does in our lives. He sneaks in, takes advantage of us.
Amen.
I could have very easily been a heroin addict. I was very competitive at a real young age in sports, so it also made me competitive in other things. Well, if you try to be competitive in drugs, I can do more than you. You know what that means? It means you could die. You could be the one that overdoses. You know? I mean, going to extremes. And Satan never tells you the end. He never tells you the end. Going to extremes.
Amen.
Taking a type of psychedelic drug, it's called acid. At that time it was called window pane. And most people would put it on their tongue and begin to hallucinate. I said, I'm going farther. I heard you could put it in your eye. So I put that thing in my eye and it dissolved in my eye. Now see what I'm saying? Satan never tells you the end results, does he?
No.
He never tells you that one day you're going to be sticking something in your eye to get high. You know, he don't tell you that. It starts out gradually, a little bit at a time. But then again, I remember sitting in an apartment complex that my grandma Wellman managed. And I did the dumbest thing, probably one of the dumbest things. Well, I don't know, there was a lot of stupid things I did, but one of the things, this one particular day, it was overcast and raining like it is today. And in my drug-induced life, that meant it was a good time to go out in the cow pastures and pick mushrooms. But the mushrooms were hallucinogenic mushrooms. And I'll never forget making up, my cousin would boil it down and make it, boil it down and boil it down and boil it down. And he's still alive, by the way, by the grace of God. He'd boil it down and then he'd drink that stuff. Well, I didn't realize how much I was drinking. The next thing you know, I'm in the floor of one of the empty apartments. Because I couldn't go home because they knew something was wrong with me. And I'm laying on the ground, and I pictured everything that I knew, all knowledge, every single word, everything I knew, leaving my mind. And I just remember lying on the floor, going back and forth. And I remember finally when I came down, I was just so physically exhausted that it was like I'd been out working for 48 hours in the sun. It just drained everything out of me. Now, the interesting thing about that is that what could have been, God chose not to let me lose my mind.
Amen.
You know, one time I remember walking around for literally 2 weeks asking my friends, is there something wrong with me? Is there something wrong with me? You know, because they were able to do it, but I flipped out on a type of acid also. I flipped out. I was wondering, why did I freak out? Well, nobody told me what it was going to do to me. I had no idea. You want to do it? Okay, yeah, I'll do it. Well, I got to share with you that God saved me then. He was there. He protected me then. He protected my physical body then. I have I had a cousin, Tony, that just recently died, and his whole history of mental problems and mental illness started from doing drugs and mushrooms. And how old was Tony, Mom, when he passed away? Do you know?
52.
Oh, 52. Same age as me. 52 years old. And he spent most of his life inside group homes and stuff like that because he couldn't function in society because of a trip he took on, I think it was mushrooms.
It was when he was 15.
When he was 15. And I remember playing with him. You know, all-American boy. Loved to swim, surf. You know, he was just athletic. Made that bad decision. Well, I remember sitting up in that town of Coral Springs, or the city of Coral Springs, and I'd finally come to a point where I'm saying, okay, I've had enough. I pretty much had enough. But it seemed like there was nothing I could do. The few times I held a job, I'd go to work, come home, take the whole paycheck and spend it, and say, oh, okay, I'm going to buy this, and then I'm going to break it up and I'm going to sell it. And I'll get a little bit of drugs, and then I'll make some money to pay my bills. Well, guess what? Undisciplined. You know, Satan was like, no, just snort it all or shoot it all. You know? And of course I didn't recognize it as Satan. It was my own flesh making a decision, wanting something for my flesh, my desire. You know, at 15 and 16 years old, choosing to start shooting crystal meth, you know, I look back now and I say, I can't believe I did this stuff. I can't believe it. But it was a life most of the time raised without God, without the introduction of God in my life.
Amen.
But then again, it was my fault. People had come and told me. There was that guy out in the basketball court in Coral Springs that came with me that day and wanted to talk to me about Jesus. Come right up to me, out of nowhere. You know, why are you picking me? He started telling me about Jesus. I go, listen. I go, I believe my way. You believe your way. I believe. I said, I believe. It was just to get him off my back, you know. And I did have a sense of belief, like I told you. But it was just to get him, you know, get him off my back. And I just want you to see the mentality I had. You know, in my back of my mind, I kind of knew. But I wasn't willing to go all that way. And one of the reasons is because of all that stuff I did, I earned a reputation. And that reputation was important to me. Now think about how stupid that is. I earned a reputation of being a drug addict, a fighter, a troublemaker, a thief, you know, stealing cars and going on. I mean, I stayed on, but God was there.
Yes, you will.
God was there. Now I'm telling you right now, I don't know how much of that I'd put up with my own son if he was doing that. You know, but God was merciful.
Yes, yes.
And He was just in the fact that He let me go through it.
Amen.
So I'd learn. But He was merciful.
Yes, he will.
Well, one day my stepmother down in Hollywood had gone to the hospital, in Hollywood Memorial Hospital, and had come down with, had cancer, ovarian cancer. And so we went down one weekend and cleaned up the yard because she was going to be coming home, and kind of fixed it up and re-landscaped it for her. I'm a tree guy, I'm a landscaper, that's what I did most of my life. So I go back up to Coral Springs, and I didn't have a car, didn't have a driver's license. I didn't get a driver's license until I was, I don't know how old. I drove a lot of cars, but it wasn't legal. So we decided to come back the next weekend. I come back, and it's early in the morning. I remember seeing a bunch of cars parked out in the driveway along the road, and this guy Bobby gave me a ride. And I remember pulling up and getting out of the car. And I'm like, what are all these people doing here, you know, this early in the morning? What's going on? And I think it was my brother that walked up to me. And he said, my stepmom had passed away. That's what it took. That guy that lost his legs, that's what it took for him. You know? What's it going to take for your loved ones? What's it going to take for you individually if you don't know the Lord? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what it's going to take.
Yes.
You know, I pray a prayer for my son sometimes. And I say, Lord, and it's the scariest prayer that I pray. And I prayed it for all my kids, all three of my kids, Leah, Shana, and Noah. And it's a scary prayer when you pray, Lord, do whatever it takes. That's a scary prayer.
Yes.
You pray that for a good friend of yours or a family member of yours, and you pray, Lord, do whatever it takes. Well, whatever means whatever. He may catch him right there in his last dying breath. I went to the bathroom of that house that I was raised in on 6565 Pines Parkway in Hollywood, Florida. Sat down on that floor and cried like a baby. And said, Lord, I can't stand this anymore. I'm done. I'm finished. I quit everything. Lord, I know now. I see what you're saying. I see what I really am. You know? I can stand up now, look in the mirror, and see the grossness of it all. I can see the people I've hurt. I remember one of the first things I did, well, maybe not the first thing, but one of the things I did years after I got saved was catching my dad in the parking lot one day alone and saying, Dad, I got to apologize to you. I got kids now, and I don't think that I could live through what I put you guys through. I mean, the nights worrying, you know, running away at 14, you know, a lot can happen. You know, living on the streets at 14, a lot can happen. You know, in and out of detention centers, county jail, a lot can happen. So sitting on that bathroom floor, I made a decision that I was going to follow the Lord. Everybody here has a place and a time like that. I want you to stop back and I want you to think just for a moment about your time. Was there a time? Was there a time? Was there a time? Was there a time for you? And you said, the Lord was there that day. He spoke to you that day. If there wasn't a time and you can't identify that time, I'm going to tell you that you need to share. You need to start reading. You need to start praying and asking the Lord, okay, maybe it wasn't. Maybe I really don't have maybe I don't understand it. Maybe I'm missing something still.